and it's my real pleasure to introduce Professor Yizhal Brener, who's head of the Geriatric Department at Meir Hospital, who I also know well because we're on faculty together at the Faculty of Medicine. And he's going to talk about healthy aging and the elderly in the 21st century. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here with you and to hear all the day. I'll try to summarize my view about this issue, and it's a summary of my experience of 40 years of experience in medicine, of this 30 years in medicine of the elderly. So, aging of the population is the main achievement of the 20th century, the main positive achievement. From life expectancy of 45, it increased to about 80 during the second half of the 20th century. 45 was also the life expectancy in Japan in 1950. So it's not genetically induced introduction that they have a long life. Now elderly, and we have already met this lady, Jean-Louis Cambet, who are the people who reach old age, those who survive aging process, those who live with or without age-associated diseases, and those who reach longevity despite their genetic and fear of death. Now looking into the 20th century, on the left you see the survival curve in the United States, in the beginning of the century and the end of the century, and we see that the main contribution is in the beginning of the century in the youngest group. But on the right, we can see the maximum lifespan in Sweden, starting in 1868, coming to the end of the 20th. And here you can see that there is an increment all the time in the oldest person who died in Sweden this period, but there is a change in the trend starting at the end of the 20th century. And this is more coming from the achievement in the science and social welfare. Now, there are two phases of life, growth and development, and senescence and aging. Aging, a natural process of changes in living biological substance. The changes are based on the thermodynamic laws, conservation of energy, and increasing of entropy and order of molecule with time. The changes in the molecular structure leading to functional changes of this molecule and to function of the persons. Aging is a sum of three factors: the stochastic changes starting from the thermodynamic end of mistakes done while producing protein, the genetic, which has to do mainly with the repair of disturbed DNA, and the environmental, which has a positive, either positive or negative effect. We all know the longevity determinator of the telomere theory of Hayflick, gradual shortening of the telomere with each cell division triggers cell senescence. But we have to remember that in the telomere there are also data concerning molecules which contribute to the repair of the DNA. The PARP, and even if we remind the Brener protein, it is located there and it disturbs the PARP, which is helping in the repair of the DNA. There is an interesting observation about the Salmon model of accelerated aging. The salmon is born in fresh water, go to live in the ocean, in the salt water. After 4 years, if have not eaten it in our breakfast, he returned to the fresh water in mountains to put eggs for new generation and then to die coming back to the sea. But castration prevents the fast aging changes and death of the salmon. It is making sometimes this way to the mountains 3 or 4 times. So what is good for survival negate fertility, the preservation of the species. We have to remind it and this is the most the atmosphere problem. But what about persons? In 2002, there was an article of Eldor that he died in an aircraft crash during his way from Germany, from a hematology conference in Germany to Israel. And he was part of our faculty dealing with thrombosis. And he wrote a review about thrombophilia in the New England Journal of Medicine that unfortunately was published after his death. High death toll is known in the hemorrhage during delivery. And we all know and have this story about our friends and neighbors and family. Female with thrombophilia better survive the bleeding. And their children had mother later on. But the gene combination for thrombophilia become more and more common. And the surviving women and their children, either son and daughter, while aging, suffer more from thromboembolic phenomena. It's not the same like in the salmon, but it's the same principle. What is good for the fertility, it's not good for the survival. And what is good for the survival is not good for the fertility. Now going a little bit about energy, because I'm coming from this field. Energy consumption by organs, and it's here. We can see how much the brain is using it, kidney, and we can see that the brain and the liver are the highest consumer of energy, and the muscle are consuming according to their activity. The muscle change with aging. These are body composition changes with normal adult male. And we can see that from a muscle mass of 24 kilograms of 70 in younger people, it's diminish almost to 1/2 of it when they are between 70 and 79. These studies were done on cadavers of males who died in a motor crash accident. No, it's not averages. It's they are calculated for 70 kilograms male, and he put it into average of all on about hundreds of cadavers, male cadavers. Now, what about oxygen? Oxygen is the major component needed to produce energy. We need it in the highest amount. Nevertheless, it's the greatest contributor to oxygen radical production. So life and death are led by oxygen. Does the capacity to use oxygen define aging? So going back to the stories about what we heard before, these are the male marathon world record in different ages. And we can see that from the world best runner, 2003 minutes, in the age of 30, it's almost doubled when the person is over 80. And these are healthy persons. It's not sick persons. They don't have heart disease, but they can use the oxygen only in this level. And these are the maximum capacity of using oxygen in healthy people. So the amount of oxygen that we can use, it contribute very much to our capacity and to the decline in our capacity to do things. So the role of oxidation, which is the bad thing that we talk about, is in aging process was established by Harman in 1955. In 2009, research has shown, now we have to understand what is the great contributor to the production of radical oxygen? Physical activity. When we are doing physical activity, about 1 to 3% of the energy that we are using is going to free radical in the mitochondria. So it's a kind of a paradox that was solved in 2010, 9 research that have shown that the reaction of the body to oxidation is more important than any antioxidation treatment. It was done on male students, were taken biopsies, and the effect of the exercise with and without antioxidant were examined by examining the activity of the insulin receptor. Thus, exercise has been established as a crucial in keeping healthy metabolism with aging. This is a review that is talking about it. We talk a little bit about stem cell. They generate different cells in different tissues. The regulation can modulate the tissue capacities, and that's very important, and a lot of research is done on it, even in this university, and some of the researcher is sitting here with us, showing this the activity. Now, enabling stem cell regulation in the Nobel Prize in 2012 is opening possibilities for regeneration of human tissues, and we talk about the technique during the lectures before, so I will not repeat it. Another issue is the methylation. We don't know a lot about it. We know that the amount of methylation and the place of methylation on the genome control in some way the expression of the genome. Advance in understanding the role of methylation of DNA and its implication is on the differentiation of cell during life. And here is some observation about hypermethylation in blood cells that I brought here. But what is more important is mapping the methylation of the genome and analyzing it with its correlation to environmental event. Let us understand how the environment, like exercise, like diet, is influence the genome expression. And this is a lot of computerized activity. We can see the genome, we can see also the methylation, and some work is done by in this issue, even in the laboratory of Liv Brazili that was discussed before about some other issue. Now, let's see what is the cascade of change with aging. Change in structure of the G protein of beta receptor is a biochemical change secondarily to the change in the structure of the molecule and the tertial phase. Now, this change increase in beta receptor number. But it's also elevate the adrenaline and noradrenaline level. So it's come from physiological to endocrinological issue. Now this increase heart rate and blood pressure, clinical cardiology effect. And in the same time, it can increase constipation and urinary retention, clinical gastroenterology and urology. So we see that from changes in the molecule structure, we can come to a clinical changes that are related to aging and not to disease. sarcopenia, loss of muscle mass, loss of muscle strength, increased risk of fall, loss of autonomy and dependency, what we are afraid, all of us, during lifespan. But what we can see, that the range of muscle mass and strength of the mass is different. They can be a low level of muscle mass with preservation relatively of the power. Now, what happened in the intracellular mechanism? Inactivity, inflammation are leading through certain ways to the protein degradation. IGF, insulin receptor, exercise, testosterone, leading to the mTOR and through caspase, to stopping the caspase activity to protein synthesis. This is the muscle mass balance. Now, if we look on the muscle mass balance and the sarcopenia, what really is difficult for the person is not the mass. It's his power and his function. And so we define frailty. And frailty is the multidimensional syndrome of decline in the functional reserve, leading to impairment or dysregulation in a multiple physiological system with reduced ability to regain physiological homeostasis after stressful events. There are several possible explanations to it: chronic inflammation, metabolic and endocrines, especially with a list of subjects that are here, sarcopenia that we discussed earlier, increased count in CD8, CD28T, lymphocyte, and for positive IgG titer for cytomegalovirus. Now, what is important is that when we define frailty, and the definition, and we measure frailty mainly of 5 parameters, 2 of them are subjective and told by the patient, and the 3 of them are measurable. But this is the best. These are the Fried criteria, the phenotype description. Now, these are the best indices that can give us some help in forecasting the vulnerability of elderly to operation, to chemotherapy, and to hypertensive treatment. So coming back to oxygen, we can see here the mitochondria changes with ages, and I took it from a friend of mine who is a gynecologist dealing with fertility, and these are taken from women in 10 years different. They are not old, but the aging process is running through this mitochondria. And we talk about the effect of mitochondria, and the DNA of mitochondria cannot be repaired, in contrast to the DNA in the cell. Coming to the brain volume and age, gray matter is declining linearity, and in its 2 different parts of the brain. White matter is going in a parabolic way, with the top in around the age of 50-55. Nevertheless, only if we are looking to some correlation with psychological data, like linear decline of capacities is mainly in the mathematical skills. But all other skills are behaving with age in different psychological studies. I didn't brought them, more or less like the white matter changes in the brain. Now, in 1977, in The Lancet, a new entity was declared. It's called the cardiogenic dementia. And we can see that there is a big association with changes that affect the entire vascular system, causing vascular wall fibrosis, thickening and stiffening, and increased afterload and more hypertrophy of the heart. But these lead to cerebral blood flow changes and heart failure, bringing to lack of energy. The neurons enter to metabolic energy crisis, acidosis and oxidative stress, enzyme and protein synthesis dysfunction, and its lead, I'm not going to show you the whole metabolic way, to the amyloid beta deposition and tau protein aggregation. These are the hallmark of Alzheimer. So there is something which is not accelerated Alzheimer disease in younger elderly, but what we see in the old elderly is more connected, and this picture is trying to show this issue. The hypoxia coming from the heart failure lead to tau hyperphosphorylation due one mechanism, and amyloid precursor protein cleavage, and dysfunction of neurovascular unit, and this lead to amyloid beta and neurofibrillatory, all of this leading to Alzheimer. So coming back to frailty, I put the cognitive frailty into part of the function. In my point of view, function and frailty, it can be either physical or cognitive, because they are in many cases combined, in some cases separated. Frailty in sarcopenia are not overlapping in 100%, only in part. Now, we have to define also the issue of age-associated diseases, diseases which are more prevalent in older age because of the aging process, have certain influence on longevity, are not part of aging process, but result of it. Degenerative brain disease, infections, many kinds of cancer, metabolic disorder, we spoke about diabetes this morning, trauma, falls of people, cardiovascular, kidney, liver, and lung diseases. These are all age-associated diseases, and exponentially from the age of 60, their prevalence is going up. We show one slide about these diseases in the morning from Great Britain. So we are the geriatrician. We have 4 giant eyes: immobility, instability, incontinence, and intellectual impairment. All these are frightening all of us, not physician, but every person. And their common feature of the giants is multiple causation, chronic course, loss of independence, no simple cure, and final common pathway of chronic condition. In acute care, and I'm coming mainly from acute care, we have deconditioning. Deconditioning, we spoke about it when we are not exercising. It's also deconditioning, and we have to make conditioning again and again. So when we are sick, we are going to deconditioning, and we have to rehabilitate it. And now I'm coming to some observation that I would like to show you, and from this to come to conclusion. What is common? We know Our Lady, Jean-Louis Calmette. We spoke about her, we saw her picture many times, but she represents here the human race. On the other side is a fish. It's not a fish, it's a mammal. It's the orca. What is common between these two creatures? And I'll show you observation from animals living in a very extreme condition, the orca, the menopause. Human being and the orca are the only mammals in the world that experience menopause. What is the lesson from this observation? So we'll see, first of all, those who are living in the extreme condition, but before we can talk about some other thing. Basal metabolic rate, BMR, is reflecting the capacity of the body to use oxygen and create energy. BMR in mammal has a linear negative correlation with lifespan. Elephants around 80, rat 4 months, dog 7 years. I'm not talking about the dogs that we have at home. They are not living in nature. Now, putting human BMR in the lifespan versus BMR correlation, lifespan is around 55 years. Mammals pass away in the nature after they create independence, new generation. 55 is the age around it humans create new generation, the independent generation. So it's correlating the sociology of the animal and of human and the biology. So what we live more than 55 is a blessing that we have to see why we got it. What is good for survival, negate fertility, the preservation of the species we spoke about before. So, Orchinus orca, חוט קטל, או הקטלן בעברית, it is 8 meters long, it's a dolphin, 5 tons, living in matriarchal families, milking about 2 years, life expectancy males 40, female around 80. Food, carnivore. Other sea mammals, about 200 kilograms a day. Female are menopause at 35 years old. Now, female receive the better food in their tribes because female takes with them 2 children for many years. This is the social role of the female. The aunts and the grandmother are babysitters, but they are not babysitting at home. They are carrying with them the little children for up to the age of 2 years. And they are milking also during this time, so they are bringing them back and forth to their mothers. So the female has a special role, and they got a special condition, and therefore they have a longevity greater than any other mammals in the world. Humans, after 500 years of humanistic reformation, in philosophy, in science, whatever we do, after the social revolutions of the 20th century, of different kinds and for different epochs, we saw the result in the aging demography. Is it a surprise? Or is it planned, like a biological plan, like we see in the orca? Is it a surprise? I say probably, because what we are doing here now is look like that we are, as a society, surprised from it. So the environmental conditions are the most important factor for healthy aging. The changes in the social, medical, and lifestyle during the 20th century are the best explanation to the increment in life expectancy during this period. Aging component we talk about several of them. Demography, and we spoke about it in the morning. It's a lot of data, and we have to look into this data, and we saw the opportunities that are within this information. Biology, especially genetic and biochemistry. Function, it's the most important factor to the elderly. And then what the physical environment, the epigenetic, that we have to try to look on it, and the social environment, economy, and equality, as Professor Harper has spoke with us this morning. And there are a lot of studies showing this, even in this country. So keeping active lifestyle in optimal nature, as well as social environments, are the only way that we can improve the quality of life in the 20th, of elderly in the 20th century. Keeping clean environment from as far as possible from radiation and pesticide and whatever else. Living with nature and not fighting it. We see a lot of troubles in our environment because we try to fight the nature and not to live with it. Exercise, keeping movement. We are built and I'm not going to prove it now because it's a long story, but I give some hints to this. We are built to be active. Our metabolism is built to be active. Stopping being active, it's like starting to smoke. Stopping being active is like starting to smoke. And this is the way that we have to look on it. Not to be active in order to keep our health, but stopping our activity is doing bad for us. Keeping routine activities, eating in a modest way, in the same hour, sleeping well, resting when we need, and being active. What to be active in? This is our freedom to decide. Everybody what he like. Dancing, you do a lot of exercise, you use your brain, and you have a social effect. So it's maybe the best thing, but somebody have to love it. If you don't love it, do other things. Equality, which we spoke about it, and confidence in the future. Our generation had it. I'm not sure if the younger generation have it. This is social, and more from social, it's even a political issue. And then, much important, is the individual's role in activity. No matter what activity, in his family, in his work, in volunteer work, in art, whatever, but having some role in all this. So, as a geriatrician, we're looking for reversible medical condition, and we have a book about it. But that's what we have to do to find out what it can be done and to concentrate it, first of all, in the simple thing, and then later with a complicated issue, as we have seen in the previous. Thank you.
Thank you. That was enlightening. Any questions? I have one. Yes. We have time. We're okay. We're okay.
As Professor Brener, we're working together, I think the many years you mentioned, and I would ask you, would you say that there's anything like healthy cancer? But then you're talking about healthy aging, and you're actually put a brilliant picture of all the effects of aging. And I remind you that aging used to be old age, or the cause of death, if you could write in the death certificate until 30 years ago. But now you can't anymore because of bureaucratic reasons. But basically, I think we're dealing with a disease, and I think that putting healthy aging as such, wouldn't you say that it's an oxymoron?
I prefer healthy aging on anti-aging because I'm pro-aging. Aging is like is a good wine. When it stays a long time, it's better. It's improved, but it's more sensitive to changes in the temperature and so on. If you are not keeping it well, it will become acid. So you recall the issue of cancer. Cancer in the elderly is not the same as cancer in younger. And the concept that we have in cancer in the end of the 20th century, in the middle of the 20th century, we are fighting the cancer. This is change in the recent year, in this millennium, by introducing drugs that are not fighting the cancers, that are not eradicating the cancer, but that decline the metabolic life of the cancer cell. And this way, the cancer patient who is frail and who is old gets this treatment and live with the cancer a little bit more in a better condition. So this change in the concept of treatment of cancer has to go also into all our understanding of aging. Sometimes we have to live with the disease, to learn to live with the disease, like in Parkinson, as we hear today, like in diabetes, and also like in cancer. I will tell you a story that I got from an old Chinese. I think he's passed away. He was a doctor learning in Geneva, and he became a very important Chinese doctor in the Chinese government. And he had a lot of information, metabolic and especially immunologic, on the high-level people in China, and for many years. And he said, I catch them in the beginning, some change in the immune system. C4, C8, I know something is going to happen. And they live for 7, 8 years. And he told me, we have to understand we live with the cancer. In your country, there are not criminals. In my country, there are. As long as you control the criminals and they are not controlling you, your country is surviving, is living like my country. The same is with the body of the person. We cannot eradicate the cancer, although we thought about it from the heritage of John Hopkins in the beginning of the 20th century, that everything has to be taken out. But, and this is very important in medicine, but we try and we start to understand and how to live with, and we know how to live with diabetes, we know how to live with Parkinson, better or well. We start to know how to live with cancer. We try to live with Alzheimer. We try to live with, so the lesson from cancer is very important to the treatment of aging, especially because it was starting in the elderly population with cancer.
So
This treatment.
will be living with old age. The next conference will be living with old age.
No, the healthy aging is very important. And aging well, I'm pro-aging. I want to be like the good one and not the bad one. And I think that we have to give, we can give a lot of things to the younger population. And I think with this message, we can feel.
I do have a question. Are there any more questions? So this is not an evolutionary process, the fact that we are not going at 55 and we're living till 90 and 100, and if we're even lucky to 122. In a sense, we've created a monster, and yet our expectations now are very high that with the ability to age, we're also going to improve the quality. So the question I have for you, how long have you been in practice in this field? How many years?
I told you, it's 40 years in medicine, 30 years in old age medicine.
Okay, it's a long time. So have you seen from the time you started in this field to today, do you see a quantitative difference, qualitative difference in the elderly and how they're aging?
Yeah. Yes, I've seen. First of all, many diseases, especially cardiac diseases and strokes, are declining. And not only that they are declining, diseases that I saw 40 years ago in the age of 50, I saw later on in the in people, older people. But the people who came from immigration in the 90s, they have it also in the 50s. The Arab population have it also. But these people also starting the age of the disease appearance is growing up and up, also in these people. So, and we know also from the statistic, and Professor Harper has shown it this morning as well, that people become less and less sick, and the period of dependence is shortening in their life expectancy. We can see all people who are coming to the age of 90 are blessed with two things. First of all, they come to the 90s with good health and with a good condition. Secondly, their end of life is relatively short. It's take a month, 2 weeks, a week, a day. The best place when they are not awaking in the morning. But so it's a blessing to come to the 90 and to live with not many reserve and to finish the life very soon. We see the change. I see also the change in the attitude. In the beginning of my period, as well as myself, we were people who that thought that the society give us everything, and the patient thought the same way. Now, people are starting to understand that they have some responsibility on their future and on their life. Some of them more, some of them less. Some of them demand very much from the medical profession, which is not easy. This is the harder thing, the most difficult thing in our work. But there are people who live, who declare very nice what they want and how to deal with them, and they open the discussion. The children of them are changing, but it's a process. It's not a revolution. It's a process that I see changes, and that's make my life now very difficult because I have to deal with people who are living with the same attitude as 40 years ago and those who are living with the new, and I have to find out immediately with whom I have to do. And this is, let's say, it's the most difficult thing now in our work.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So I want to thank all of you. This is really a wonderful session. I think the biggest take-home message is that we all have to exercise. One thing that wasn't dealt with, certainly in my session at least, was the concept of nutrition, and I'm sure that goes hand in hand as well. Meir, I'm going to give you the floor for organizing a really remarkable meeting. I was honored that I was able to be part of some of it, just a small part. And
thank you very much, and thank you all for staying with us, till the last lecture, and we are a little bit longer. But I do hope, like Karen said, that every one of you has his own take-home message. And as I said in the morning, this special day, we went through the healthy and not healthy aging, the micro and macro environment, and we went through the various point of view and broadband of science area. And personally, we went from as I say, the physiology, the biology, the genetics, and I thank Dov for taking us also, like I said in the morning that I started because of my parents, to the Holocaust survivor and to the trauma. Now I understand much more. Until the exercise, and now I'm also terrified because it's not only that I'm not exercising, I'm also stressed. So where will I go? So this is my own, take-home message. No, that's my, we went from Earth to space. So really, we had a wonderful tour this day, and I thank all the speakers really for very nice, each one has his brilliant message for me at least, and I hope that the only cure that I may have is the adrenaline that I will gain by creating all this collaboration that I saw during lunch and later on that you guys created collaboration and analyzing data and going on collaborating and working together for the best of all of us. So that will be my adrenaline that probably will save me. So thank you very, very much all, and thank you, Yizhal, for starting this idea of the day with me. And just stay healthy. Thank you.